Welcome to the Industry Angel Podcast. We hear from the best business minds across the globe, entrepreneurs, social influencers, marketing mavens, and sales rock stars. We've got them all. Here comes your weekly dose of inspiration with your host, Ian Farah.
Today we have the founder of Little Cooks, the monthly subscription box for children. Welcome to the Industry Angel, Helen Burgess.
That's lovely to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you with us, Helen. Thanks so much. I'm really excited to hear more about your business, and especially as it's for children, because I'm a father myself, and I read up about the synopsis of your business, and I got quite excited because I thought, wow, that's such a good idea. And I'm guessing you're a parent yourself, yeah?
Yeah, I have a wonderful little boy who's just turned 7, actually, just during lockdown. So yeah, he's really the sort of motivation behind it, really.
I was just going to say that. You took the words out of my mouth because I guessed as much. So I tell you what it is for new listeners or for people who haven't heard about Little Cooks. Why didn't you give us a bit of a background on the business?
Sure. So yeah, it's a monthly subscription box for children. So it gets addressed directly to children, and all children love to get post. But the kind of purpose of it is to try and teach children how to cook. So we do that through baking recipes, but we also include savoury recipes and extra bits of fun. So growing their own vegetable seeds so they can use the food in future recipes, that sort of thing, in order to teach them a life skill that will help them be healthy in future, and also introduce them to the concept of nutrition, which is just very, in a fun and happy way, just that what we eat and our bodies and our health are connected. And it's a simple thing to understand, but it's quite lost in today's society, I think. So that's the kind of health side, but also it's very much to try and give busy parents, as all parents are busy, an easy, stress-free way to spend quality time with their kids. So you get all the dry organic ingredients, you get easy recipes. It's like an hour of fun in a little box where you don't have to go researching on the internet and looking at different recipes and then realizing, oh God, I don't have that one ingredient, and then the kids are disappointed. So it's just a great way to bond and spend quality time together. And so many of us have those memories as kids where it's time in the kitchen when you're making something together. You're collaborating, and the end result is a nice cake, or it's a quiche that you've made, and you serve it up to your family, and it's just a wonderful thing to do, and it's such crucial life skills.
There's loads in there, isn't there? There's teamwork and everything, isn't it?
Yeah. And all the, there's reading, counting, all the fine motor skills, of being able to measure, ingredients and chop up, various bits and pieces. So yeah, it's wonderful. I obviously absolutely love it.
You touched upon being a busy parent. Then I'm gonna wind you back to your corporate life. Was it? So before you did this, what were you doing?
Yeah, so I spent 10 years working in government, which I absolutely loved. I was mainly working in sort of strategy roles across various different departments, and it was a wonderful career. I then fell pregnant with Artie, and at the time I was working in Cabinet Office in No.10, which was exhilarating, exciting, a hugely privileged role to have, but it was also pretty brutal and crucifying in terms of the hours and stress. And I thought, as you all know, like, having a child is such a transformative thing in life, and I sort of used that opportunity to think, what do I really want? What am I passionate in? And I decided to quit and then retrain for 3 years in nutrition, because I'd always been interested in nutrition. It was sort of triggered by my dad randomly buying me a book when I was about 15 called Anti-Cancer, A New Way of Living, which was such an odd gift because none of us, fortunately, had suffered with cancer, and it was so random. But I did dutifully read it, and it just opened my eyes to this. This chap had very aggressive cancer, and he was either a GP or an oncologist himself, and he'd tried all the orthodox approaches. And in the end, it kept coming back, and he started to look into the research about food and lifestyle and mindset and that sort of thing. And he managed to live cancer-free for 15 years. So, that I was so captured by the empowerment of it, that, there's a place for medicine, absolutely, but we can do so much to help ourselves through, moving our bodies, eating nutritious food, trying to be positive, optimistic, that sort of thing. So I was captured then, but I never really thought of it as a career for some reason.
Yeah, I can hear the passion there. You went into passion mode, and it's obviously made a massive impact on you.
It did. It's yeah. It's funny why I suppose I never thought of it as a career at that age. Going into doing my A levels, university. It was just, I suppose I just thought, I'll get a proper job. I'll go into government, or I'll go into. It's funny, isn't it? How and now I'm older. I mean, I don't regret it. I absolutely love my career in government, and I wouldn't change it. And it's through having Arthur that really, really focused my attention on children's health. Because as soon as I got pregnant, even before I got pregnant, I started to think, well, how do I, ensure that my body is at its best, in being able to nurture, and grow a child. And then when he's old enough to eat, what do I feed him? And it's a minefield out there for, the information is often conflicting, it's confusing. The marketing that's allowed is crazy. So I thought, well, this is, at the time when I was in government, we were talking about the obesity strategy, actually, and I was quite torn, because obviously as a civil servant you have to be unbiased and impartial and all of that, which I was. I was a proper civil servant, but I did have my quite strong views about it myself. And I thought, well, I really want to have an impact on this, and I want to do something myself to be able to help an issue that I'm extremely passionate in. And I thought, whether it helps 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever, it's such a fulfilling way to spend my time now, knowing that our little boxes go out and they can have a positive impact on the families that use them, whether that's the time they spend having a lovely time together, making memories, whether that's the learning, that the child might remember that vitamin A is good for their eyes, that learn a new cooking skill, whatever it is. I just love it.
So obviously you had a passion when you were in your work at No.10, and it was always the background passion for you. And as you said there, you kind of prepped yourself and wanted to bring your son into the world in the right way. And but what about Little Cooks though? Like when did that spring into your mind?
Yeah, well, I think it was in my second year of my nutrition course at the time. And I'd been focusing all my studies on childhood health. And then as a parent of a, then sort of 2-year-old, I sort of realised that we're time poor. So I needed something that would help families, be able to do this easily. I did some research that found that really it's the sort of healthy snacking that is one of the biggest pain points for parents, because most parents will have a kind of a menu of 5 to 10 sort of go-to recipes that they can churn out and, their kids will eat. And so it was the snacking side of it. It was the trying to make it as easy as possible for parents, because the thought of having to, go online and research all sorts of healthy ways, because there's plenty of, easy cake recipes out there, but applying nutritional value into them is not always that easy. And to source the ingredients, because we do use, things like quinoa flour and, ingredients that might not be that readily available. So you can't pop to your local supermarket necessarily to get them. And we prepackage it and it goes off in the box. And then if they love that recipe, then they can make it again and order it online, order the ingredients online themselves. So that, plus sort of seeing that the subscription model was really starting to take root. So in America, it was just so trusted and done. It was, everyone was doing it. And in the UK, it was starting to take off more. And there was still a trust issue where, it felt like people thought they were being conned into signing up for something longer than they wanted, and they were fearful that they wouldn't be able to get out of it if they signed up for longer than the sort of monthly. But that really feels like it's shifted now.
Yeah, I totally agree. So when you first launched, did you have any targets on how many boxes you'd need to get out?
I think we thought if we could do 100, in the first in the first month or two, which we did not. It was all done, basically on my own for 2 years, doing everything, doing all the recipe development, packing all the boxes. I had a little heat sealer and my, gloves and hat that I'd wear with my kitchen measuring scales, doing this, from a kitchen table, basically, real cottage industry.
Yeah.
And organic growth. So I think I started maybe at about 50, and then that grew to sort of 700 odd by the time I realised I needed investment, because I was going completely insane packing these. I got to a weekend where it was about needing to pack about 3,000 little bags of ingredients, and I thought, what am I doing? I realised I do have to outsource, and really I had fantastic sort of organic growth. I didn't spend anything on marketing apart from a £25 Facebook ad I did at one Christmas, and I got £150 back in revenue, and I thought, win.
Rinse and repeat.
But yeah, I then sort of came to the realisation that without a big chunk of money really to throw into marketing, it wasn't going to scale that much. And I was making a small salary from it. And, I was really proud, and I'd grafted so hard to get there. But then I sort of checked myself and thought, really my passion and my mission is to positively influence and impact the childhood health. And to do that, I want my, kids to get into as many houses as possible. So I realised then I need to go for investment, and unless Jamie Oliver managed to pick us up and say something wonderful about us on social media that would give you that kind of boost, it needed some spend in marketing. So I went for investment.
In terms of the branding, Helen, and the marketing side, who is the face of it? Is it your son? Is it you? Is it just the logo?
Interesting. I mean, it's the logo, but I'm really, I think, the face of it. So the social media is very much me and my son. So what are we like? Yesterday we went and picked carrots from the allotment because we grow food. It's what we eat. It's very much, I suppose, my journey of sort of setting it up and where it's getting to, and it feels like from the social side it's very much that. But I absolutely love our branding, and we had just such a genius designer. Luckily, I met him really early on, and he was quite fresh into the design world and branding world, but he just did such a stonking job, and he's still with us. He's still our designer now, and we were very lucky to have met him.
In terms of authenticity, we talk a lot about that now, and I think people like to buy from brands that trust or that can relate to. So,
yeah.
The story, we all learn from stories. I often say this on the podcast, and actually that was why I asked you, because the story of you and your son and picking the characters, that's where we relate to. And actually those are the companies we want to support as well. I think we're kind of getting a little bit, sick of the bigger boys, if you like. We want to try and support each other from a business point of view and give money back to the small business and help them through it. Have you found that?
Oh, absolutely. I think sort of conscious consumerism is really, it's such a, a growing trend. And, I've always thought, sort of personally myself, you can get quite overwhelmed with the problems in the world, whether it's the environment, all these big things. And it can get on top of you and feel quite stressful. But I think our power is ourselves and how we choose to live and how we choose to behave. So, how I spend my money is a direct sort of demonstration of my values. So I buy organic food and I grow my own food in order to increase the demand for that, because I have a very strong views about it. And that is something that I would do perhaps at the expense of something else, because I'm very value driven like that. And I think that, where you're spending your money in a sort of, consumerist capitalist sort of world is a lot of our power. And I think that's, especially with the plastic debate, and, people are really becoming, I think, a lot more mindful about what their contribution is to the issues that that we have in society at the moment, and how we spend our money is a big part of that.
I totally agree. So have you had to take it on board, Helen, in terms of the packaging side of it and actually the ingredients itself?
Yeah, for sure. So we only include organic food, and that's partly environmental reasons. That's health reasons as well, because pesticides are neurotoxic, and children are most at risk of the neurotoxicity because they're more at risk when they're young. So there's that side of it, and it's an environmental thing as well. So definitely with organic ingredients, and we're compostable packaging, which the start I will admit that it was a recycled plastic that I was using, but as soon as I was able to switch after a year or so for the last 18 months, it's been the compostable, and it was like it was such a huge increase in cost, proportionally for packaging, but it's a no-brainer. I wouldn't even sort of consider not, because it's such an important, I want to know that everything about Little Cooks Co is as positive and as it can be, and has the best impact as it can.
Thinking about the buying persona then, or the customer avatar in marketing, we often term it as. Did you do the research, Helen? Does that mean something to your consumers that it is, 100% recyclable packaging and it is organic ingredients?
Yeah, I think the packaging more so. I think organic is a sort of nice to have,
Okay.
but not quite so demanded for, by customers. But definitely the eco-friendliness of it is part of it, from the kind of the parent who's buying it, and then grandparents are another, big chunk of our customer base who are buying it as gifts for their grandchildren.
So you mentioned before, I've loved what you're talking about, value driven. So, when you started Little Cooks Co, did you come up with a set of values or a mission statement or what you wanted to achieve? Did you document that?
Yeah. So at the start, and it still is really, it's bold. It's trying to empower a generation of children to form happy, healthy food habits, to live happier, healthier lives. So that is really, if they don't know how to cook, then what chance do they have when they're older not to rely on processed food or takeaways or pre-made food? They simply will have to, because they won't have the confidence. There was a terrifying bit of research. I think Sainsbury's did it. It was a few years ago now, but they interviewed 1,000 young adults about to go off to university, and only a third of them said they knew how to boil an egg.
Wow.
It's just so scary. So it's about empowering children, and families. But if they know that, and they know how to cook using real food. So I did 3 years of, it was much tougher than I thought. I studied philosophy at university, and that was tough. So I sort of thought the nutrition degree would be, hard going, but not as complex as it was. And it really did test me. It was very, very difficult. But my end result, my conclusion to it all is just eat a good variety of real food. So vegetables, fruit, olive oils, those sorts of things. And if you have a good variety of good quality real food, you don't need to worry about calories and the proportion of protein versus fat versus carbs. Just eat real food. And if children have the confidence to cook with real food, then I just feel that's a major part of trying to tackle the obesity and issues that we've got, and empower them to lead healthy lives.
I think the education piece is really important in tackling that. So do you get involved with the schools, Helen?
Yeah, I go in and I'll do talks and things. Really, our philosophy is very much about trying to make cooking a habit at home. So I don't do so much of the cooking classes in schools, because then it's sort of an outsourced thing. It's the children are learning cooking in an extracurricular activity, whereas we're all about trying to make this a habit at home, and where it's easy and fun and nutritious. But certainly to be able to go in and talk to children, to introduce them just to the concept of eating a rainbow, and why yellow food is good for your immune system, and just very simple but little imparting a little bit of knowledge, hopefully, to help them realize that what they're eating impacts their bodies.
And in terms of imparting that knowledge and going back to that education piece, there's things we can do as parents. There's things we can do as, I'm a school governor, for instance, where we're going to, kind of impact our schools. From a governmental point of view, is there anything that you believe should be happening?
Yeah, well, so much. I could probably.
Sorry, I'll just throw that grenade and walk out. Yeah.
I think the most powerful thing that government could do to have a kind of pretty immediate and dramatic effect is to make healthy food cheap and unhealthy food expensive.
Okay.
It wouldn't be pretty to start with, but if that really is sort of forcing the issue, there's little nudges towards it. That I did see, what was it, that the VAT reduction that they've given to food businesses. I saw that a headline that was KFC bucket now down from £10 to £5.
Yeah.
So it's got to be well thought through, and I think the government obesity strategy is coming out next week. I could talk a lot about it. I think the sugar, forcing food manufacturers to reduce sugar has basically meant that sugar has been replaced by artificial sweetener in many cases. That is not a good outcome. That's not helping children or anyone who eats that food be healthier. There is lots, my personal views about artificial sweeteners are that they have a lot of damaging consequences to health. I would love to see more of a focus on positive nutrition. So rather than listing out, calories and all of that, because we could get all our calories from eating Haribo sweets, the calories that you eat need to deliver nutrients with them for them to be good calories to consume. And I would love to see that food manufacturers have to put on their products what positive nutrition the product will deliver, rather than the kind of very much negative, reduce this, reduce that, have a traffic light system. Not to say any of those things don't have a place, but it's very much what you can't have, what you need to restrict, what's negative, and I think a shift to a more positive discussion about food and how powerfully, impactful it can be on our health if we eat the right sorts of foods. And I'm not purist. I'm all about 80-20. I will have a glass of wine and have a piece of cake, unhealthy cake, from time to time. It's not about being very, very rigid. But if the majority of what we're eating is real food, it's colourful and it's good quality, then, you can have the odd chocolate bar or whatever. But it's I'm intrigued to see what the strategy is going to say on Monday. It'll be interesting, and to see how different it is to the one that was published before.
You touched upon Jamie Oliver before, and if Jamie brought something out, he would have a voice and a platform, and people would listen. I really believe in what you're doing with Little Cook's course. So is there an element of frustration, or is there an element of, I wish I could get the message out a bit more, and how do you market this, Helen?
Well, certainly before I raised investment, yes, because I didn't really have the ability to really get it out there. But I feel now, we're investing much more in marketing, so it's being seen by a lot more people. Through lockdown, we've been searched for more. We've been found more because it sort of hit a lot of the things that people were looking for, which is having fun with kids at home, something that can be delivered, to you rather than having to go to the shops. There's always a few extra ingredients, but we try to keep them to things like milk and honey and that sort of thing. And so that, obviously, if Jamie Oliver, his platform is so, powerful. But I feel now like we have the investment behind us to really start to build awareness and grow our customer base.
Because you hear a lot about these companies who start, maybe Innocent springs to mind.
Yeah.
What does success look like to you, Helen? Is it something like that where it takes off and you can impact as many families as you can?
That is it. It's to try and reach as many families as possible, which then in my, it does sound a bit corny, but really the driving force for me behind it is in order to have that positive impact, hopefully on everyone that uses it. But it's aligned with the investors, obviously wanting it to get to as many families as possible to get that growth and, to get the return. So it's totally aligned. It's just that really the driving force for me is to have a positive impact. And when we get emails from people to say, they might have subscribed with us for 18 months, say, we're moving, or we finished our journey with you now, but our child can now prepare these meals for us. They're confident in the kitchen. They've got this love of cooking as a result of your kids. That to me is success. it is just wonderful to think that we've enabled that.
So let's talk about the entrepreneurial journey, Helen. Okay, this emotional roller coaster that we're on. And, I often tell people you just got to love the game and not get too hung up about the end game, the end result. You have to still enjoy the journey. How are you finding that?
Yeah, I do. I'm better at it now. I think at the start, I read the book Mindset, Carol Dweck's book Mindset. I'm so pleased I read it so early on in the journey. And also Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is another wonderful one. But I realised through reading it, I did have quite a fixed mindset. I was quite success driven. And, I would have balked at the idea of setting something up and it failing, and that would have felt too shameful, and all that, the difficult emotions. And I worked really, really hard on developing a growth mindset and just being ballsy, like really going for things, punching above my weight.
Yeah.
I joined the NatWest Accelerator about a year in, I think, and that was transformative because it's very much all about the growth mindset. And they just put you forward for things that they know are going to scare the life out of you. And you either do it or you don't. And I was absolutely determined. I've now got this policy now, though, where if any opportunity comes up, I'm like, well, I'm going to say yes. I'm just going to say yes because I'm not going to be a no person. And sometimes, you've got to also have an eye on your diary, what's possible to achieve. But yeah, it is a roller coaster. And I still get the fear. I still feel nerves. I still can have crisis of confidence, but I do a lot of mindfulness. I work hard on it, and I love it. It's just been so incredibly fulfilling.
Talking about the mindfulness, how do you avoid burnout, Helen? Do you literally put hours aside because the entrepreneurial journey, you can end up working for yourself a lot harder and longer than you did for anybody else?
Yeah, I'm good at work-life balance, and everyone that works with me now, we're basically parents who had, high-flying jobs before having children and then didn't want to go back to the environment of work that we were in beforehand, before having children. So we all work flexibly, which helped when it was lockdown because we were already using Zoom. We already worked from home, all of that. And we're very much we focus on our children when it's after school time, pick up. We spend that quality time. We might work a little bit in the evenings, or, I'll sometimes wake up before my son wakes up and do a bit of time then. But I do have that downtime. And then I absolutely religiously go to my yoga classes because I find that just so restorative and so sort of rebalancing. And I probably achieve it like 3 nights out of 7 to do meditation or mindfulness before bed.
Brilliant. It sounds like you've got a good handle on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at it.
So I was thinking about business. Then before we leave you, think about the business advice, maybe good and bad, or what you've learned. Is there anything you could share, like maybe the best advice you've ever had or the worst maybe?
I think, reading that book, Mindset, really, I would just recommend anyone, whether it's to do with business, whether it's parenting, whether it's your personal life. It's such a fantastic book. And then really trying to apply it. It's the people I've met that have created the opportunities that have really had an impact on the business for me. So really being, and it's can I think sometimes be hard for introverts, but to go out and to really try and build your network. I've just met some brilliant people who then will think of you and think, an independent, a journalist from the Independent is looking for food subscription boxes. I know Helen, let me put you in touch, those sorts of things. And at the time, I hadn't had much PR at all. I didn't have a PR firm, agency that I was working with. And it really showed to me the power of your network and the people that you meet and invest in your relationships with. And then I think it's looking at accelerators and the sorts of mentoring out there that's available. A lot of it is free. And before joining the NatWest Accelerator, I had a fantastic business idea. I was doing it well. I was very, very passionate, but I didn't understand things like the SEIS, the investment world. all the kind of tax release, like, the R&D and all those sorts of things. And it sort of helped me shift into a different level and professionalize the business, really. So I'd definitely recommend looking at what's available in local area for accelerators.
Brilliant. Great advice. So before we go, Helen, it would be remiss of me if I didn't ask you, how can we find you? How can we subscribe? What does it look like?
Yeah, so it's all e-commerce, so www.littlecooksco.co.uk, and it's all available on there. You can sign up for 1 month, 3, 6, 12-month subscriptions or gift plans, which are non-renewing. And then, we're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram at Little Cooks Co.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing your journey, Helen. I'm really excited and intrigued to see where this takes you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
No worries. Thanks, Helen.